to make sure. Good.
Hello and welcome to the AniMates, the show for animators by animators. And today we're talking about learning animation. So I'm your host, Elise Skymer. I've been working in the industry about 4 years and currently working at Digital Extremes. Right now, the order I've got is Alex Sedona and then David. So do you want to keep that order up maybe, unless I mess it up again? So Alec,
Yeah.
you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm Alec. I'm working at Sony for the past year now, I think. I've been in the industry for about 3 years now, I guess, 4. So, yeah, I guess.
Hi, I'm Sedona. I'm a games animator over at Ubisoft Toronto right now. I've got experience in both TV and movies. Or sorry, not movie, TV and games, no movies. And sorry, bear with me. I am very brain foggy this week because I have caught a cold. So, yeah.
And I am David Pumpa. I'm a cinematics animator at Ben Studio. I've been in the industry about 8 years, I think.
And if you guys want to see everyone's show reels, you can go to our website, the AniMates, and you see when we're on, and catch up on any videos you might have missed. All here, and on the About page, you can see a bit about everyone and everyone's reels. And you can also get in contact with me if you are a school and you want to do stuff, if you're a studio, if you're a professional, you want to be on the show and be interviewed, or if you just have some feedback about how we're doing stuff. So sorry a little bit for the echo. We're technical difficulties. But
Well, that was something I started to do and then everything exploded.
okay.
Oh.
But I think what we're going to start doing, which is quite exciting, is we're going to start by having a in the news featurette. So if you haven't heard, which you probably already have, that's good. If you haven't already heard, it's been a big thing about the 100-hour work weeks tweet from Rockstar Games, the guys who make GTA, and more recently Red Dead Redemption, the second in the series. So what happened was Dan Houser, the co-founder of Rockstar Games, said we were working 100-hour weeks several times in 2018. The finished game includes 300,000 animations, 500,000 lines of dialogue, and many more lines of code. Even for each Red Dead Redemption 2 trailer and TV commercial, we probably made 70 versions, but the editors may have several hundred. Sam and I will both make lots of suggestions, as will the other team members. So just to put this in perspective, 100-hour work weeks average around 4 hours a day for 7 days. So I've got some stuff that's happened since that tweet's gone out. Obviously it's been huge on Twitter, and it's something that's really important to us because this is our life, this is our work. This is fellow colleagues that are potentially working, I guess, their whole lives, because 14-hour day, there's not a lot of room for anything else. So what would you guys think about this? I had for anyone to start, but maybe Alec.
Well, I think it's a prudent idea to say right off the bat that nothing we say here reflects that of our employers or anything like
Right.
that. I mean, this is just our own personal opinions, and this is a very touchy subject because
Yeah.
anything we say, we have to consider our social media policy, which almost every major company has. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind and take everything we say with a grain of salt, and that does
Yeah.
not reflect anyone that interacts with us.
And I think
all
to
right?
add to that, we want to say that, if we have experiences we're sharing, it might not necessarily be the company we're currently working for. It might be someone else's experience that we're talking about, and we're just talking about it as a personal thing. So it's not necessarily in relation to the companies we are or have worked for. So, But yeah, as Alec, you're not part of the games industry, but 100-hour work weeks are probably something you're quite familiar with. What do you think about this?
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, yeah, I mean, I completely understand this whole thing about. I mean, with 14 hours work week, you basically just work, you go back home, sleep, and you just work again.
Yeah.
I don't think it's healthy in general. I feel, I know. I mean, I guess if it's paid, that might be fine.
Yeah. So they did say it was paid, but
yeah, but still, it's not ideal. Maybe you can do it once. I don't know, every like 4 or 5 months, or 1 week maybe, but it's very hard, I think, because I've heard there's like studios that still do like a lot of hours, and I mean it's hard, man. I don't know. I just sympathize like the rest of the guys that have to do it. Crunch time is never easy, to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean I don't know what to say about it, and I don't know what else I can say about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Have you ever had to work 100-hour work weeks, Sedona? Oh, we can't hear you. Wait.
Push to
Can't
talk.
hear you. Yep. Nope, can't hear you. Okay, maybe David first. Yeah, no worries.
Well, first of all, when I heard the news, I wasn't surprised. I mean, I can imagine very few people in the games industry were actually surprised that this had happened at some point. A couple things for context. They said they worked 100-hour weeks in the past. First of all, that doesn't mean everyone. That does not mean the entire studio was working 100-hour weeks. It could have been just like a select few that were doing it. But I'm sure, I have no doubt that a lot of people were working some form of crunch time. And this is something I've had to deal with in the past a lot, with almost every company I've worked for. And it always sucks. It is an absolute terrible way to work. I mean, and even if you only work like maybe an extra hour a day, extra 2 hours a day, that still drastically impacts your life, because all that's coming out of your free time. And you only have so much free time in the day. And then even on top of that, if it pushes even further, suddenly you're sacrificing other aspects of your life, whether it's for stuff for entertainment or time with your kids, your family, or any other obligations you might have. Suddenly all that has to go on the back burner. And suddenly your life just kind of like slowly grinds away, and it's just terrible. So when I hear news like this, it's an old tired tale, and I've heard it like a million times, and it's terrible every time I hear it.
Yeah. For a bit.
Is it working?
Oh yeah, no, it's working. Go for it.
Okay. Sorry. No, I remember because we have a Rockstar somewhat close to Toronto. I think it's in Oakville. And when I was going out and applying for positions, and I saw that Rockstar was an option, it was a pretty open secret. Anyone who talked to me about it, they said, Rockstar is a place where you go if you want money, but don't want to have a life. And that was par for the course for Rockstar. It's not like it was like some big secret. It's you in a lot of cases I feel like you did to some extent go in knowing what you were getting into, but not at the same time you don't, because like when I started my job, like coming out of college, and I've been working like crazy hours in college. So for me, coming in and being thrown into 60-hour work weeks, like perpetual 60-hour work weeks,
Which is a lot.
I was like, I have weekends, guys. It's great. I'm fine. And no, I absolutely burnt out.
Yeah.
And like I couldn't do anything. I had no energy otherwise, because I was at work from 8 a.m. till like 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. just trying to get troll hunters out. And at least then it was paid and we got dinner, which is nice to some extent. It really helps me with my student loans. So you can kind of do it when you're younger, but it's still like it gets to be very unhealthy very quickly. So for me, it's like I've done overtime, and I could do overtime again. Probably I'm young enough still, but it really you don't realize how big of an impact it has on you until you've dealt with it for a long time.
Yeah.
And
I think it's interesting you said about how you kind of knew going in that was that company's culture, and I think every studio has its own culture. You have more kind of family-oriented studios that are like, we never do crunch, you go home at 5, it's all good, it's not going to be a pressured environment. You have, other things, and the thing is, I think it's one of those things where if you ask around the animation community, people know about it, and it's not kept a secret. It is kept secret within the animation community. You don't go online and say, oh, this is the company that blah blah blah, but word gets around because it's a small company, and people that worked in a lot of different places, so that is interesting.
I think the worst aspect of it is
the what?
Sorry, go ahead.
Like Glassdoor has warnings. Sorry, there's like latency. I apologize.
Yeah, it's all good.
Go ahead.
So I think that the terrible thing about it is crunch time and these ridiculous hours are so ingrained in the industry that it's taught in school.
Yeah.
So even when you're going through classes, they're like kind of building up. It's like, okay, well, there's going to be points where you're going to be working, 80, 100-hour weeks, and you got to be ready for that. And you got to deal with the burnout, and it's a part of the whole culture, like ingrained all the way back in the beginning. So I think that's just a terrible aspect of it too.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard when the reality you face is potentially, people might imply that you should work longer, and there's a general sense of, if you're not doing this, then we can't force you to, but it might not look so good on your performance review, and it might not be something we're gonna. It's not just good enough to be good at your job in some places. Sometimes you have to also be the person that's willing to stay till 10 at night. And some other things came out in the meantime. 14-hour work days, 7 days a week is nuts, and there's been many studies that show that that's just not sustainable and terrible for you any long term. I've had friends that say they've crunched for like 7 or 8 months, and I'm like, yeah, but not crunch, and they're like, crunch, and it's like, ugh, that's terrible. So management did say, through conversations we've been having, it's clear to us that the requested scheduled overtime feels like an obligation to some, if not many of the team. We therefore spoke to them and said that it's clear that the overtime is not mandatory. And also Hauser, who wrote the original tweet, also clarified and said that he was actually only saying that the 100-hour work weeks about himself and other lead writers, and they also lifted the kind of social media talking ban and let anyone who was a Rockstar employee talk about their experiences online, which is an interesting move, really. And a lot of people said that 100-hour work weeks, no, probably not, but a lot of them agreed that it worked well beyond a 40-hour work week. And one person even went on Reddit, who was working in QA, and said, "We had a big meeting today where it was announced that all overtime going forward would be entirely optional. So if we wanted to work the extra hours and earn the extra money, and in brackets, which was the important part, as well as make yourself look better for progression, then we can do, but there is no longer a rule about making us do it." And he said, this overtime was not optional, it is expected of us. If we're not able to work overtime on a certain day without good reason, you're expected to make it up another day. This usually means if you want to work a full weekend off, that you will have to work a double weekend to make up for it. So I think there's a lot of interesting information there, right, about what is really going on. So when they said, go ahead, go talk about it online, people came out and said, you know what, yeah, I'm working really crazy hours, but not that crazy. And then someone else, went on Reddit and who was in QA, and apparently Lincoln was notoriously the worst branch for this, and that's where this guy was working. And
I've heard I've heard a lot of horror stories about working QA.
Yeah.
I'm not very surprised.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting, this idea of like career progression, sacrificing your life for career progression, not just the 8 hours you work, but also beyond that. And this kind of implied you really should be doing this as part of your job is interesting, right? I mean, what do you guys think? Alec?
Yeah, I mean, like in general, like when I started, I was sacrificing a lot of my like free time for work, for example, and it was like it wasn't pleasant because it does distance you from like your friends,
Yeah.
and you don't. I mean, as much as you meet new people at work, it is still work, and you kind of want to hang out with your friends, and life is so important. Like
What
it
do you
takes
mean you want a
social.
life? Isn't this your life? Don't you love what you
Yeah.
do? Oh my god, stop
You know what?
complaining.
Yeah.
Who needs a
It's,
family? Who needs
Yeah, this is
friends?
the family.
Isn't this your
Yeah.
passion?
Your friends are at work, man. Like, why
Yeah,
wouldn't you want to
exactly, yeah.
spend 14
Well,
hours a day there?
That's one of the things. Like in general, like, because everybody that I work with, I literally like, I find like everybody's like super nice. Every company that I've been at, and I still, to be honest, like when I do animation, like 5 days, 6 days a week, I feel like on Sunday I just want to spend time with like people that don't do animation sometimes,
Yeah.
just so I can talk about anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like this is why yesterday was so nice for me because they were just, me and my girlfriend just went in the forest. They were just like two people. We didn't talk about animation. We just talk about other stuff, and it was just nice. It also helps you with like to kind of like reset your mind for like the next weekend, for the next week to work, you know. And
Yeah, definitely.
I think yeah, I think it's very important to have some time off work so you can. It's like you know, you're taking like that time off to step off your shot and think about other stuff, and when you come back, it's like your brain is completely new. You can you have new eyes on your work, which is kind of very nice, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's what's important to have. That's why it's important to have like a good social life, I think.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it helps a lot
Or just
if
a
you want
life,
to do
you know,
anything else.
outside of work.
Yeah.
A bare
Yeah.
minimum. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people forget that animation is a very mentally stimulating job. And like as I mentioned, I believe back when we were talking burnout,
Mm.
um like if you spend too much time focusing on it, like it does get draining. I have a friend who picked up a second job and I was really worried for him, but it was he had because he has a very like mentally stimulating job currently doing like management, and he took a second job where he's just slicing bread at night. He said it's amazing because he just shuts his brain off and he just does something
Oh, that's
and he gets some extra
interesting.
money. For him, it gives him some time to just kind of power down and do something while still getting money on the side to like save up for stuff.
Yeah.
But it's so he's working more hours, but like so much of it is not like you need your brain for animation or you
Mm.
don't do anything. Like you
Mm.
have to constantly be thinking, oh, does this look like
Yeah.
it moves correctly?
Yeah, as soon as
And
you get
it's
tired,
weird to
your
think of
animation quality
how
goes.
it's so weird to think about how much you go and you're trying to like mentally calculate, does this swing look correct, does this arm motion look okay, and it just it's really weird to think about.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the biggest problems with like all of the like the talks about like overtime and overwork, and as someone who has like two of the three jobs that they've ever worked have been like a lot of overtime,
Mm.
it's really crazy to think about. like like right now my job at Ubisoft, I've been there a year now and I have not worked a single day of OT
Mm-hmm.
since I started, like none, which means like it's possible. So yeah, I don't know, like Ubisoft at the very least tries really 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 hard to ensure that there is a good work life balance, and it's something that I really wish more studios would really push for, because like it really does have a positive impact on workplace culture, I think. And it's really good for those younger like people like who are starting families, like because that's a really big issue. And um it just makes it feel like you can keep going on once you actually do have like it, especially in these industries that are so tough.
Mm.
So and so I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's clearly possible to do not 100-hour work weeks. It's just I'm sure it's going to take some steps and it's going to take some cultural shifts. It is a thing that can be done.
Yeah. Yeah. David, do you have anything to add, or?
Yeah, I wanted to comment briefly on what you were saying before. Is like how they released the note saying that people aren't required
Mm.
to work overtime,
Yeah.
but it's highly encouraged
Mm-hmm. Encouraged.
for things like progression. I'm really surprised they actually said for progression.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised they said that straight out right. I mean, it's kind of implied in the background, but nobody ever says it vocally, and that's kind of what I want to talk about is that this is a crunch culture. I mean, a lot of times at a lot of studios, they will never tell you directly, hey, you need to work overtime. I mean, there are points and there are periods where it happens, but to give you an example, one of the previous jobs I worked at, and I won't say which one, we had a minimum of, I think, 10 hours we had to work a day,
Mm-hmm.
but we were also highly encouraged to volunteer more time.
Mm.
And it's so they never flat out said we needed to work more time, but they always said it's highly encouraged that you volunteer. And they specifically said volunteer, and they specifically encouraged
Mm.
because they knew they legally couldn't say, hey, we need you to work this overtime, even though we're not going to pay you.
Mm.
But there was so much pressure from everyone at the studio for everyone to continue crunching all the time that it looked very bad on you if you didn't, to the point where people would get fired or at least get talked to, like verbal warnings and things like that.
Mm.
So it's one thing to say, yeah, no, we don't require it at all. That's not what's happening internally. Like it could be in a lot of situations where people are just feeling that peer pressure from everywhere around them to
Yeah.
actually work these long hours.
Yeah. especially if like you have like a lead or someone who's working a 12-hour day, you don't feel like you can go home at 5 and feel okay about that. Like it's also perpetuated in the group that you're working with in the studio, you know, or if you go in at the weekends and, you know, your colleagues are all there, you're like, oh, is this what is expected of me? Is the 9 to 5 thing not good enough? That's the contract that I've signed that I'm legally obligated to, is that not good enough, you know? So, you know,
Yeah.
it is hard. It's not great to hear about this sort of stuff happening. And there's also people that kind of, I don't know. But I think someone asked a question, Animal Nature said, does overtime creep up on people, or is it something that leads will say is officially being asked for? So Alec, what do you think? Is overtime something that just kind of happens over time that builds up?
Yeah,
Or?
I think it's like when you start a project, usually goes like, you know, like when you start it, it's like the project starts. So like the project starts, everything's on plan, right? But then certain stuff start happening through the course of the project. So like certain delays, and you know, by the time the last 3 months are coming, it's like, okay, well, we're kind of behind schedule. We have to have crunch. You know, I think it's just inevitable. This is what I like, going on projects early on, so I don't have to do crunch that, you know, that soon. I get like 6 months, and I can plan my, you know, vacations and stuff, and then, you know, the next 3 months maybe I have to do crunch, which is, I mean, I'm fine with it, to be honest. I don't mind, like, as long as it's like around 10 hours maybe every day, that's fine. Because those 2 hours, I mean, they still affect you, but it's not such a big effect as 14 hours, for example. That is a
14
massive
hours.
effect on your day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, 10 hours is not that bad.
Yeah.
But
Because I
I don't
personally
know.
feel like what happens is, as you kind of get to a deadline, it doesn't even have to be the end of a project, but just like a milestone or a deadline. Usually, kind of the producers start looking more in depth of where we're at, whereas where we're supposed to be. And I
Yeah,
feel like, you know, it kind of starts getting mentioned like, oh, we're a bit behind schedule. So then people might throw in an extra hour or two here and there, and oh, maybe I'll just work a little late. And then as it gets closer and closer, I've heard of, you know, things happening where, you know, a producer will be like, yeah, we're really behind schedule. It would really help us out if you kind of could put some extra hours in. And I feel like it gets to the point where it's seen as the dev's responsibility to make the time up, even though it's not it's usually not the dev's fault at all. Usually it's poor planning, unexpected changes, you know, a whole host of things. And I feel like what can happen is the pressure kind of gets more and more. People voluntarily start putting work in, and then it gets to the point where it gets encouraged, or even implied that it's mandatory because the pressure is on for other jobs to keep everyone on schedule. And if you're one of the departments that's behind, not necessarily for any fault of your own,
yeah.
it becomes, you know, one of those things.
Well, to be honest, I think like as you progress in your career, I feel like maybe crunch time gets less. I don't know. I think that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
The crunch time gets less, so you don't have to do that many overtime hours.
Mm.
So I don't know. You know, I'm speaking just out of my own experience in the last like 3-4 years that I've been working like in features, and just I don't know.
Cool.
I think
What do you guys think?
the industry in general has gotten better over the years, and I think
Yes.
it will progressively get better as time goes on.
I think it's great just to talk about it as well, you know, to just have people be aware that it's a thing and that it's okay to say, no, I'm going, it's 5 o'clock, or it's, you know, 5, it's 6 o'clock, I'm going home. And if people are like, well, you really should stay, and it's like, well, no, because that's not what we agreed to. If you want me to work overtime, I think especially overtime that's not paid, it's like, okay, well, I'm just offering up my free time to you now. Like, this isn't something that was previously agreed. I'm not getting paid for it. I should have the option to go home and do other things if I choose, without feeling like my job's on the line or something, you know.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think
Sorry.
So
the other big thing that I think people will forget sometimes is with a lot of projects, especially if you're working with a client, at least from my experience with TV, the studio that normally gets the project is the people who bid the clients will go to the lowest bidder, which means the person who's like, oh yeah, we can get like this many episodes done in this much time, like don't worry, and then they try to make production do that. So like with my first production, we were told that it would be like they wanted like 15 seconds of animation a week, but with the quality that they wanted and the amount of people that we had and the amount of money that we were getting, it was closer to about 9 seconds a week, which means that's why we, like when I first started at my job, it was like we're doing 48s and 60s, like that was what it was. But at another job where again it was another lowest bidder situation, because people already know my opinions about the one client I love dealing with so much, but like because they know that they can get away with it because they're a big client, they like my studio made big promises, and but on the other hand, we weren't told we were doing any overtime. We were just expected to get the episode done in
Right.
4 weeks in.
Unrealistic
And we're like,
deadlines.
hey, so what about overtime? And there's radio silence from management. So like you'll get very different responses from different companies and how they manage it. And so much of it has to do with those contracts that you have no control over.
So, if everyone's okay, I have two things I want to comment. Alec was talking about how 10 hours a day isn't that terrible. Two things I want to say about that. 10 hours a day may not seem that bad, but the whole idea of it could be worse is a very dangerous line of thinking for our industry, because yes, it absolutely could be worse, but at the same time, it could be better. I mean, almost every other industry in the United States works 40-hour weeks and they go home at the end. I mean, it's just, there's no reason for us to take 10 hours as normal. I mean, we should be pushing for normal things like that. And the other thing I want to say about that is 10 hours isn't that bad, but the duration of it can be extremely bad. Like, to give you an example, I was working at a company where we were working in 10-hour days, but it was over the course of 7 to 9 months, and that doesn't seem that bad. But over that time, just the stress keeps building up and building up, and if you have other things going on in your life, that's just additional pressure that kind of builds up without any kind of release. And I remember during that time, it got so bad that I was going through mental breakdowns at least once a week, to the point where I was like incapacitated. And I had to go into therapy afterwards because the buildup became so much. I had no kind of relaxation. I was tense all the time, angry all the time. It's just a terrible way to work, to live.
Yeah.
And to answer Animal Nature's question, there's two different ways that crunch time can happen. One is kind of like the peer pressure that I was talking about before, that we were all talking about. The other one is crunch time gets announced. They usually give people some kind of heads up, either like a week in advance or a couple days in advance. But it could come from any source. It could come from supervisors, clients, well, not necessarily clients, but supervisors, leads, department heads, anyone like that. Anyone who can look at our schedule and be like, you know what, we're actually falling behind. We have a deadline coming up. Everyone needs to put in the extra time. Everyone has to. In those situations, crunch time is required, and crunch time is actually like put out there. But the other one is what the far more dangerous one is, the one that's kind of implied crunch time. Those are the two major sources.
Yeah. Do you feel like also with like crunch time, like I feel like in terms of our industry as well, artists I feel are very some people, like some artists, super ambitious. So like they always want to progress really fast in their careers, and they actually volunteer these extra hours. Do you feel that's that's kind of like connected to the crunch time, or do you think they just do it because they just want? Like, does that make you like do extra hours too?
It could be a bit of a catch-22. Like people feeling like they need to be dedicated, and they're showing that they're wanting to put the hours in, and so then, which is already in an industry that is well known for somewhat expecting to have these hours.
Yeah, because I don't know, like I feel like we're talking about like the management and stuff, but sometimes it's like also our own fault allowing this stuff to happen. Like the industry would not be here if we didn't allow it, as artists. That's what I feel too. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's two different cases for that. One is to go along with the whole crunch culture thing, one is guilt based, so people will feel like they have to put in the extra time to get better, to stay on top and things like that. But there are some genuine cases where people put in the extra time because they love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know one guy who works 16 hours a day and has worked 16 hours a day for the last like 20 years because he genuinely loves what he does. And like many of us have had multiple conversations with this person. It's like, hey, man, do you want to like go out, or do you want to take a break or things like that? And we try to reach out, we try to help them. It's like, listen, I don't want you to feel obligated to be here. And he's like, no, I want to be here. I actually have fun doing this. So yes, it does happen. I don't want to treat that as the default thing. I mean, I want to feel like most of the people want to have, a life outside of work and things like that. But yes, it does happen, absolutely.
I do think there can be an element of like one-upmanship. Like, oh, well, if so-and-so is staying till X o'clock at night, maybe I should be staying till X o'clock at night and a little extra. And then if you do that, then someone else does that, and someone else does that, and then suddenly the whole studio is working till crazy hours because everyone, is kind of fueling that respect. If someone else is working till 10 at night, that can make you feel guilty for going home at 5 because they're getting an extra 5 hours done every day than you are. And I think, it's really interesting what you said, because it's like, it's hard, right? Because it's not like a normal day or there's normal tasks in a normal job where this is actually something we enjoy doing. So there are cases where people are just genuinely, I just want to do this extra thing. I've just got time. I don't mind doing it. That's cool. I don't see a problem with that. I also don't see a problem with working the hours you want to, as long as you want to do the hours necessarily. I don't think that just because one guy decides he wants to work 100-hour work weeks, that means the whole company is going to start doing that, unless they start saying like, oh, well, so-and-so is working that much, you need to do that too. I don't think that really happens. I think either you are in a culture where crunch is expected and accepted, and that's that, or it's not. And I feel like, or that, I guess there's a grey area, but I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think crunch happens because of individuals. I think it's because of planning and decisions higher up and budgets and things. I don't think just because one person is going to work late a couple of nights a week, that's going to change anything. So I don't personally think that it's that person's fault if they want to work late, and I kind of respect that they want to work late. I'm like, you want to do more stuff, you want to progress in your career, that's cool. I personally would rather do a normal work day and then come home and do my own stuff. If I still have energy and passion and stuff to work on, then I'll bring that home with me and do stuff. The other thing I remember reading about before was I think it was EA, there was like a wife of a dev who worked at EA.
Spouse, yeah.
Right, EA spouse. And wasn't it, I think I remember reading something about how she was saying that the amount, they were doing like crazy crunch for so many months on end, and he was having terrible health problems and all this, that, and the other. But I think the main point that I came away from that was that they were getting even less done than if they hadn't done the crunch. Because the thing is, I see crunch as like a short-term thing, where I think it can be a kind of fun thing, where it's like, okay, we've got 2 weeks left for this project, we all want to make it look good. If people want to work crazy hours for a little bit of time and have a pizza and, really push something, I think that can actually be quite a rewarding experience, if it's not forced. I think when it turns into a problem is when it's expected over months and months and months, and is now the new kind of status quo that people have to reach. And I think what ends up happening is you get a short-term reward of it, and producers and other people, not that it's always the producer's fault, but people see, oh wow, our work output has gone way up and we're fixing all these problems and isn't that great? And then they're like, oh, we should do more of this, and then the more crunch happens, the less productive everyone gets, because there's no time for a break. You're having all these other problems, like you said, your brain was just dead, and you can't do your best work, so you end up producing less in the 8 hours that you would have if you'd have just went home and had a break. So yeah, it's definitely difficult, but that wasn't the topic of our stream. But that's cool. If you guys don't mind running a little late, it was really interesting talking about this anyway. Did we get any more questions at all?
Nope, I haven't seen one.
I think we're good. Cool. So that was in the news segment, which overran by 40 minutes, but that's cool, as long as you guys are cool. So what we also want to talk about is learning animation. So that's about whether you should go to university, which online schools are good, if you should do them, if they're worth the money, can you just teach yourself? You have to go to one of these schools. And also, you know, how do you learn animation if you're a professional or if you're a student? What's the best way of doing it? You know, does life drawing help? You know, all that kind of stuff. Do you have to be more technical? Does certain tools help? You know, all that kind of stuff. I think it's going to end up being a two-parter at this rate. But I think what would be cool is if we all just kind of went round and just said kind of what our journey into animation looked like, specifically with a focus on how we got the skills to do our jobs. You know, did we go to uni? Did we do online schools? Have we been doing extracurricular stuff, for lack of a better word? So how about we go backwards this time? So David, do you want to just like run us through kind of where you came from to get where you are now, learning wise?
Okay, so I'll keep it short. I went to Full Sail University. I did an accelerated program where I crammed 4 years into 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
While I was there, I learned all the different disciplines from modeling to compositing, so and everything in between. Um, After that, I've been taking online classes for various different things, just to kind of keep my education up to date. And that's about it. Did that question include like what my opinion was on it, or just what my background was?
No, I think we can. Well, I guess if it's specific to what you went through, I think yeah, you can do that now. That's cool.
Okay. My opinion is yes, everyone needs to go to school for this.
Okay.
I'm actually a strong supporter that you can't teach yourself how to do this. Like back in the 90s when you could get a job just from knowing the software. Like if you knew Maya, you could actually get a paycheck just from doing that. But nowadays, I think it's absolutely required for people to go into an education, whether it's online or brick and mortar, because it's not enough to just pick up the software and to pick up the techniques and things like that. Schools teach you everything from how to work in a group and then proper workflow, and then they also help you troubleshoot an extremely difficult technical program. And plus, there's always the networking aspects and things like that. So I think being in school has way more benefits than just learning animation, which I think learning animation you kind of learn by yourself, but there's so many other aspects to it that you can't just learn on your own. So I think I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm. And Sedona, do you want to run us through what you went through and how you got to where you are and your opinion on it?
Okay. So I did 4 years of game development and entrepreneurship at a school that claimed it was well-rounded, and it was not. So I did the 4 years there, and then went back to school immediately to the college on the same campus, and I studied the animation course. And similar, like it was a full rounded course. It was supposed to be 3 years. I could only afford 2 because I had inadvertently gone to university with one of the most expensive courses in the province. So I ran out of money and had to go, I need to know how to animate good this year and help. And so
Now, please.
I rushed out, and I managed to sneak my second year reel in with the third years. And I honestly don't know why they didn't let me help fundraise with them, because I told them I was leaving that year. But I ended up in there, and then I got contacted, and basically after that I had work. And I tried to take an online course, but that I kind of screwed that up royally, just because I was working so much overtime at my second most recent job, and lost $2,500 on that. And here I am. But as for opinions, I do think that the education, like going to school for animation, is really helpful and important, because one of the things is like you can't see your own mistakes, and having other people critique you is one thing. Learning as well to take critique is so unbelievably important as an animator. Like, you need to learn how to be modest and how to take rejection with grace, and how to take critique with grace, because man, you would be surprised at how many people do not. So yeah, I think animation does teach you some really important stuff, like how to work under a lead, how to work with a team, because well, okay, no, that's a lie. I don't think college taught me that, but it's because we didn't get to do a lot of group assignments in that regard. But it's something that I did learn very quickly when I went off to school, like went off to work, is how helpful everyone was. And I do think that the online course that I was taking was very valuable. It's just I didn't have the time. I was in overtime, like we were talking about earlier, and I had to keep apologizing to my teacher because I was working Saturdays on a really frustrating show that I shouldn't have been. But yeah, no, I think it was really valuable, and networking was really important. I made a lot of contacts through university, like people who I still talk to today. And like my teachers were wonderful people, and like you could go to them for basically anything. So, yeah.
Alec.
It's my turn. Okay. Oh, I mean, I went to uni to study actually animation. So like mine was more like 2D and stop motion, so it wasn't like 3D involved as much. Even though there was like I think like a couple of semesters in it, it was more like modeling and rigging and animation all together, and it was like kind of like you have to figure out what you want to do about it. If you want to actually study modeling, or it's kind of like giving you like it's allowing you to tip your toes into it and see which ones you like the most. And then my third year was like you can focus on whatever you want. So I was like, cool. I think I'm just gonna do like some 3D, but I didn't have that much experience in it. So I was like, so basically my third year reel was kind of like very bad in 3D, but my 2D reel was really good. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put my 2D reel somewhere. I was like, I just had this itch because I knew that the industry's made 3D like everywhere. Like 2D is like very like only a few studios, and if you want to go to like Japan, you might want to do 2D, but I kind of wanted to go to like towards America, so I was like, I need to learn 3D. So I went to an online school, and yeah, that's how I actually got better at 3D, to be honest. But I've met people that have literally like, there's a guy that hasn't done schools, like he just contacted him, you know, he worked with me in a hotel, and he's like 20. He since 14 he's been contacting all the big talents in animation, like Frank Abney and all these guys, and he was like, hey, can you help me with my work? And they were like, sure, yeah, give us some notes. Honestly, like, I mean, he was 20, he was working with me, and I was like 24 at the time. So I'm like, damn, this guy has done so much without even spending money on university or anything.
Yeah.
And then I had like another friend of mine, he just did online school. He didn't went to uni or anything. Like, well, he started like 18. By the time he was 20, he was the Tony. Because he was just, it's just, I don't know, everybody has like their own different ways, I guess. But I feel like university teaches you to be more to become a bit like better at like being social, like not sociable, but better dealing with people. Maybe I feel like the online does not allow you that because you only see these people like a couple of hours every other day, and you don't really talk to them. It's most because it's through camera, and it's not very what's the word for it? Like humans don't really connect that way. I don't feel. That feels like that easy to connect. Um, but yeah, I mean, whatever suits the people, I guess. If you can learn it by yourself, that's totally fine. I think that's doable. If you can contact people and they can help you with it. Uh, but I don't know. My opinion is you should probably do everything because it's kind of fun. You should just go to everything. Do it at university, do it at school. Do it by yourself. Do it with
Yeah.
online peers and so on.
Yeah, I guess actually we've all
It's cool.
done a bit of all of them, haven't we, really?
Mm.
Because we've all done
Yeah,
university,
yeah.
self-taught, and an online school. So
Oh,
that's,
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
was about to say we're all going to be biased because we all went to uni, but I guess that was all of our starting steps. But then we've all
Yeah.
actually done all the other things. So that's cool. Yeah, I personally knew I wanted to do animation and then did a lot of research into which was the best university to go to in England. And asked a bunch of people and a bunch of industries and basically collated all of them and found out what the top 2 or 3 universities were and decided that if I couldn't get into those 2 or 3 universities, I wasn't going to go for a year. I was going to teach myself and then try and get in again. So that was my like, this is what I have to do thing. I think one of the key things that was important there was that I could have gone anywhere and gotten technically the same degree, but I wouldn't have gotten the same skills. Not all courses are created equally, and there is something to be said for paying the same amount. Well, in England at least, you pay the same amount to go to a different school, but if you can get into a more renowned, better school with a better setup or program or lecturers, that's worth it, I think. So yeah, I did 3 years at university, got my BA in digital animation specifically. We had a similar thing to I think what you guys also had, which was the first year we did a bit of everything, and then the second year I think the second year was more animation focused, but we still did a bit of the other subjects, and then the third year was half like animation school and half final project or something like that. So we also had like a basis of all, modeling, lighting, rendering, blah blah blah. What was cool was they split us into 2D, 3D, VFX, and games. So we were all in together except for the 2D lot for a lot of stuff until you got to the second year. So the nice thing about that was you got to learn about industries that you didn't necessarily think that you were going to go into. And you also got to go to classes that you didn't necessarily think you were interested in. So for a while, I thought I wanted to be a lighting artist, and I was like, no, animation. But I know a lot of people that went to go to university for one thing, and then were like, hang on a minute, this other thing, I way more enjoy that. And I also think it's worth having that knowledge. I think it's helped me having that knowledge of, even if I'm not great at it, I know how that works, so I feel I can communicate better with other people that do that stuff. And I feel like I'd get more frustrated with Maya more often if I didn't have some understanding of rigging, modeling, lighting, that kind of thing. And having that support of your friends all going through it together and doing the group projects was really great for me. I think for me personally, in the way I learn, I couldn't have learned more faster on my own or in a school that quickly. The only thing that maybe would have been better for me is I was one of the few people that very quickly figured out that I wanted to be an animator. So I probably didn't need as much time learning the other stuff as other people did, but it was, I don't feel like it's held me back. I mean, maybe if I'd have gone only to an online school, my animation skills would be better now, but I still love the fact that I have that other grounding, and I have friends that do modeling, and I have friends that do lighting, and that's great. And then I did do an online school while I was working, and that was great. It was a lot of hard work, but it's trying to squeeze in the hours to do an online school while you're working is it's challenging, as I guess we've all figured out. But yeah, I my opinion is that they're all great options. You have to figure out what kind of person you are and how you learn and how well you can push yourself. Because I feel like I know people who have been successful with just teaching themselves, but you have to be, you've got to be in it to win it, and you've got to get up early, you've got to push yourself. No one's going to be putting deadlines on you. You've got to do that all yourself. So you definitely can do it. I think it's, I don't know, harder, but it's, I know you save the money, but you lose out on, I don't know, having some fast tracks of someone actually just telling you how to do something and having that information base. Yeah, it's a lot harder.
It's definitely a lot harder. And
yeah,
I think
you don't have the structure there for you. Someone else has gone through and figured out you should probably learn how to do a walk cycle, and then you should do this, and we should teach you what keys are and what these do and what that means and how to move an object in Maya first before you go and try and do blah blah blah. And to have that understanding is helpful. But we're more progressively going into an online culture where there's Anim Dojo and there's Anim School and there's like 4 or 5 different animation schools now that specifically do animation, which I didn't know about when I went to university. And I think if I'd have found out about that, I probably still would have done university because I still wanted to have that structure. I couldn't have worked at home to save my life, I don't think. It just wasn't where I wanted to be. So I think that was always my goal, but I think it's interesting that that's now an option, that you can do that.
I mean, with like the university, the degree really helps you with like visas and stuff. So if you want to like live and work in another country, it does help a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the other thing. because I guess it's just like the world we live in. They just appreciate that degree for some reason, even though nobody's asking for it.
Yeah.
For visas, it does help.
Yeah.
But I do think that like, I mean, as much as my maybe like university didn't get me that many like, job opportunities, I would say, it does like social skill is actually it is a skill that you can lose, and I feel like the more time you spend in front of a computer and like you alienate yourself from people, because animation is such a like you have to stay in front of a computer for like a long time, and you don't really socialize a lot. You do tend to become a bit weird. I'm not gonna lie, you do tend to become a bit weird.
Yeah.
That myself, like literally, like, I had like at times when I'd be like hang with like people that would usually connect, and I was like, oh my god, I'm just not interested in whatever they're saying. So I'll be thinking about my shop, and it's just it does, it is a skill you can lose. I'm not joking.
That's so funny. No, I think it's very interesting to look at the pros and cons of each of these different things because they're all structured very, very differently. And I knew someone who went to college, but it wasn't very good, and didn't really get a job afterwards. But then they worked really hard and got the skills afterwards, teaching themselves. And they were a great animator. Like they had it, they did it. They spent every hour of the day working on their own work and pushing themselves and doing it, and they got a job, and it was great. And they also progressed up the ladder very quickly because they were hired as an intern, but then they were like, whoop, because they were like, well, this person hasn't worked in the industry before, so we'll try them out. Oh my god, they're great. But I will say that they did not. They wanted to work on what they wanted to work on, which might have been a personality thing, and it might have been I've been doing, I don't know how long it took them, but, let's say I think it was like 6 or 7 years. They had 7 years of waking up every day and animating whatever they wanted to, and now they're in industry, and people are saying, go do this boring thing where the character just turns 800 times or whatever it is, and they're like, yeah, or I could just go do this other thing, and, I don't know if that was a personality thing or a self-taught thing, but there is like a harsh reality between those two things. So yeah.
I think that one of the things, like if you do go to university, definitely do your research. One of my biggest mistakes when I went off to school is when I went to go look at this tech university for their well-rounded game dev course. My dad pointed out to me, and I'm like 17 and I don't know what I'm looking for, and everyone's pushing for university. You have to go, like everything's been like kind of like drilled into your brain that it has to be university. University is how you are successful. So colleges weren't on my radar, even though like Sheridan is a college. It is the animation college, or it was at the time in Canada. And I just remember going to the open house and my dad pointing out to me like look at like the art here isn't very good. You'll be very valuable here. And like for me, I went, yeah, that makes sense. And then when I went to school and I didn't learn anything, like I was valuable like for group stuff, and I ended up being a TA as an undergrad, which is not common, because the art course was so weak. But it meant I didn't really get to learn anything, and I had to go back to school. So definitely do your research into what you need to do. And also like there are the social aspects of things, but I would definitely understand like not being able to afford to go and spend that much money, because you also have to count like rent if you're living abroad and like staying in a dorm or in a nearby apartment. Like I left school, like I had to leave college a year early because I was out of money, because I was $80,000 in debt when I left, and I'm still paying that off, and I will be paying that off for another like 5 or so years. So I totally, like, as much as the university life is very cool, definitely consider your options financially too, because they're like, and definitely research your schools better than I did, because again, I was 17. I didn't know better. I was very naive to what I needed. I should have wanted to be the worst person in the group, because that is where you will grow the most. And that's what I recommend, is like, don't go in wanting to be the strong, like don't go into a room and like be happy that you're the strongest artist there. You do not want to be, because you will not grow as much as you could if you were the
Yeah.
weakest. Because
Yeah.
that is where I grew, is when I became a junior animator on a really intense production and I was the worst animator. And that's when I started getting really good.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think I had that experience because I think when I went to university, most people had done an extra year of art college or something by the time they got there, and most of them had already played with Maya, and most of them had already. And I hadn't. I come straight from what we do, which is A levels, but most of the people were like a year older than me, and I'd only done like 1 year or 2 years of art, so like my art skills were like, terrible. And I was like, my goal is now to be they said something to us like, oh, only like the top 5 or 10% get hired at the job they want, or something like that to us. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be in that top 5%, and that was my goal every year, was like, I want to be in the top 5%, even though I'm coming in at this level. So yeah, it's definitely interesting, the different. Yeah, I had a thought, you said something else and I had a thought and it's gone now. But
sorry, I know I'm rambling right now. It's the brain
no,
fog.
it's great. What else we got on here? The money situation is definitely worth thinking about, because not everyone is in the same situation. If you can be the sort of person where you can stay at your parents' house or a friend's house for no rent or little rent, and save yourself the university fees and spend that instead on teaching yourself the basics and then going to an animation online course, I think you could get pretty good pretty quickly. And I think that but you do have to have a lot of self-discipline for that. You've got to be the sort of person that will sit there without anyone watching and get on with it, because if you don't, you're just going to throw your money away. Same with university, I guess, but I guess university has that extra structure and that extra peer pressure of trying to be better, which is good and bad. And what was the other thing? My mind keeps going blank. I don't know. Does someone want to take over?
Well, I mean, yeah, like university is super expensive compared to online courses.
Mm.
That's like my university was like 3 times more expensive than spending 2 years on an online course, and that was for 3 years at university. Yeah, like I think in that sense, I mean, I had like over the course of the whole uni, I had like 7, 8 jobs or something like that in total. By the time I finished, to like make sure I meet ends, it was crazy. But yeah, I mean, like with the online, I mean, it's still very hard because, I mean, if you can do it from home while you're living with your parents, I think it would be like, and if you like spend all your time on it, because there's like, as much as like you see like all these online schools put their reels out and they're like amazing, you have to consider how many students in that school. There's like tons of students that go through those classes. So only the best of the best that like end up on the reel. So you have to think that obviously, if you don't spend the time to become better, it's up to you really. It's your own time, how much time you spend there. If you don't spend the time, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, you're not gonna be that good.
Plus,
It's all practice, really.
Yeah, it's one of the few careers where no one's going to care which place you studied at, which course you took. No one's going to care. It's one of the few places no one's going to go, oh wow, Harvard, that's amazing. Like, no one cares. It's always about the real. And like you said, the way it was explained to me was like, no one's going to care about your degree. The only thing they're going to care about, the only thing that's going to apply to is when you're applying for visas, in which case it'll be slightly easier, but it's really not that big a deal. And it's all going to be about your reel. And if your reel is good and someone else is great and they didn't go to university, they're not going to pick you. Like, it's just that simple.
Exactly.
Which is nice, it's freeing in a way to know that if you didn't want to go that route, you don't have to do that, And there's a ton of online courses. You could definitely teach yourself. Arguably, it'd take longer, I think, and it'd be harder. But it would be interesting. I'd love to talk to someone who purely taught themselves and how they figured that out, because I remember when I first opened Maya, I was like, oh my god. And I feel like I'm the sort of person where it's quite hard for me to first start learning a software, but then when I learn enough, the first kind of levels of it, I kind of get into it. But initially it was like, I just, and I actually did try and open Maya and use it before I got to uni, and I just didn't have a clue. I watched like online videos and nothing worked, and then I clicked this button and then everything changed. I didn't know how to go back, and there's so many like weird little things, and I feel like sure maybe I could have had the technical know-how how to push through that, but I was like, oh, I won't worry about this. I'm going to focus on my school and then worry about this all later. You know.
I want to comment on a few things here. One, at least you're absolutely right. Nobody cares about your degree.
No.
Nobody cares what school you went to at all. Like I remember when I got my diploma, I used it as a mouse pad for 3 years.
No.
I never even took it out of the cardboard sleeve, and I think I even threw it away before I moved up to Oregon because it's absolutely worthless. Nobody cares where you went to school.
I don't know where my degrees are. Neither of them.
Yeah, they're
Mine
just
is
a
framed.
paperweight, really.
I'm proud of that shit. I'm like, yes.
My roommate's is framed in her room, but mine, I don't care.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to kind of rehash here is the whole teaching yourself thing. I just want to emphasize that I do not think it's a viable option. I think it's irresponsible for us to kind of push that option because I guarantee every single one of us here knows at least one person that taught themselves and made it to the industry.
Yeah.
But I bet you can count those people on one hand. Like out of the hundreds of people you've worked with, I guarantee you can't count more than 5 of them. Like it is a very, very rare thing. Two, okay.
Well, two, but one of them's character modeling.
Okay.
Which is arguably even more competitive in some places. So.
Oh, absolutely! Like it's a 10-to-1 ratio animators to character model. Like it's you need way more animators. The other thing I kind of want to agree with Alec on this one is no matter where you go, what you do, it's the university can only take you so far. What's really going to take you the full distance is what you put into it. Like I went to my college history is long and complicated, and I won't get into the whole thing, but I remember I went to a community college. It was my first foray into game development, and it was a new program. We were guinea pigs, and they said, "Yeah, you're just going to be our first class." And our teacher, the head of the whole department, was a percussionist. Had no industry experience, no art experience whatsoever, no programming experience, but he was in charge of teaching game development. So it was a terrible school to go to, but I spent 10, 12 hours a day in libraries teaching myself how to do stuff and these certain things. And I eventually jumped ship to go to a real university. But I mean, it's no matter where you go, you definitely need to have the work ethic to pull yourself through. Like it's I see so many people that go through these universities and get out and they're expecting a job, but then get really surprised when they can't find one because they haven't bothered to do the work that so many others have done.
Yeah.
We were talking about, what was it? Oh, the difference between the three.
Yeah.
So major differences between online schools and brick and mortar schools. So online schools, like you were talking about before, they give you the flexibility of time and location. You can go to online schools from anywhere in the world, which is fantastic. You don't have to go to that school, which means you can live with your parents or something like that. Very, very cost effective. The advantages of brick and mortar stuff, though, is one, you get that whole networking aspect. Like I got to meet dozens and hundreds of new people that are talented. Some of them got into the industry, and I've gotten 2 of my jobs from people that I met in school. One was career services, it was my very first job, and then the second one was actually a guy I barely interacted with, but knew me by reputation alone and was able to get me a job at Treyarch, and that was fantastic. The other thing that I think brick and mortar schools offer that tends to get discounted is accountability. Is knowing that people are relying you on some things, whether it's a teacher offering you an assignment or a group project, or even something as simple as like just a partner or something like that. Like I had a person in school, she was my animation partner. We met in month 10, our very first animation class, and we hung out with each other every single day, and we kicked each other's asses the entire time.
Yeah.
If one of us started to slack off, we were banging on each other's apartment doors, being like, "Where the hell are you, bro?" We were inseparable, 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
And because of that, we became first and second in our class, and we were the first 2 people to get jobs, and we have a very successful career because of it. Those kind of connections that you make inside those schools is exceptionally useful.
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the advantages and disadvantages to it.
Yeah. No, 100%. That's so true. I remember my dad told me, go find the top people in the class and go make friends with them. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And they're like, and he was like, you're paying like, X amount a year. You don't want to hang around with the people who are going to be dropped out by the end of the year. Okay. You want to go make, and like, okay, sure. Maybe I didn't go like latch on to anyone, but yeah, I kind of identified a group that was like, oh, these guys are coming to the thing is like, if you're the sort of person who's going to turn up to every lecture, you make friends with the other people who are going to turn up to every lecture, and they're going to be the ones trying hardest in the group projects, and they're going to be the ones that are getting jobs. And if you make friends with all of them, you know, they're going to be lifelong friends. You know, the group that I did my group project with, we're all still friends. We're all still talk. We're all still like this. You know, and one of them I'm still dating. Who dragged me to Canada with him. You know, and it's you can't put a price on how amazing it is to go from being in school where you don't want to be noticed for being different or special to going to a whole building where 100 other people are going, this is my life, I love this thing, I love all the games you like, I love all the films you like, I love animation to death, I want to do this all day. Like the atmosphere of being around that many people every day that you can hang out with and be a dork about everything with, and feel that connection, which is the same that you get when you go to industry. You kind of go, oh, these people are all similar to me, I wonder why I get on with them so well. You know, they're smart people, obviously, if they're into all the same stuff I am, or whatever it is. You know, that is invaluable. And, you know, as you said, like, I think, you know, some ridiculous percent of jobs come from recommendations from people you already know. So that networking element is definitely a thing. Though I guess it's not something that I consciously ever really thought about. I guess it was more of a subtle thing where someone might be like, oh, by the way, we've got some jobs going. And I've referred my friends to positions and they got hired, not because they were like, oh, because of me they got the job, because obviously you still have to be skilled on your own, but they might not have even thought to apply for that job if I hadn't mentioned it, and that kind of thing. And I remember one of my motivating factors for going to university specifically was in my family, there was this big thing of like, we want you to be the first person in our family to get a degree. And while that doesn't mean anything in our industry, in my family, that was a big deal. It was like, we want you to be the first person in our family with our name to have a degree. So that was my primary motivating factor. And there was something about like, I'm not going to do this in 4 years, I'm not going to do this in 5 years, I'm going to do it in 3, and I'm going to get out and I'm going to be top of the class. And that was always the expectation. Even though there's nothing wrong with not doing any of those things, it was a massive driving factor for me putting that extra time in. And then something else you mentioned about the social skills. I think social skills, it sounds so like flimsy, like, oh, your social skills, but it's so important, you know. It's like, I remember they always said to us, like, rule number 1, don't be a dick. And you think, yeah, whatever, that's funny. That's not true though, like there's got to be a better rule number 1. And then you realize how small the industry is. And if you're a dick, you know, people find out very quickly. Just like if you're a bad company, people find out very quickly. People talk. And there are definitely some traits that I had the pleasure of unlearning at university, and things that I didn't realize were abrasive until I lived with people and like talked to other people on the course and worked in group projects and wondered why my like steamrolling through to everything wasn't working. And there's definitely some things that I'm glad that I figured out before I got in the industry and managed to use that to like shape and grow myself as a person with the other people that were all trying to do the same thing but in a very positive way. You know, I don't know if that kind of resonates with you guys too, but that kind of group atmosphere where when you're hanging around with the right people that all have the same goals as you, you get this such a massive momentum, you know, to kind of keep pushing. And that for me was so important, I think.
Yeah, you definitely grow as a group faster than you grow as an individual.
Yeah, especially if all the people in your group are better than you, which they were. But you know, I kept up, and then I got in the group project, and I was like, I'm gonna keep up with you guys. I've got like new standards to hit. You know, I won't let you down, and you know, it worked out in the end. But it's tough.
I remember there was a kid in my year the year above me. I was same year I was graduating, so graduating with the third years. And I remember a friend of mine from the year above me being really upset because there was this one guy that they were allowing to graduate, and he didn't really do anything. Like she was so upset, like how dare he graduate? Like I can't believe they're letting him graduate with us.
That makes me
like
look worse because
he didn't do anything. And I told her, I'm like, look. Just because he has a degree does not mean he's going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Because not like it's going to show on his reel, A, and B, people are going to clue in real quick if they start working with him that he's not worth anything. He's got a degree and that's it. That is so little of what you need in order to continue in this industry. And I've seen some less than, I don't know how to put it nicely. But I know people who have been blacklisted from studios in my city simply because they were colossal douchebags when we worked with them at prior studios.
Yeah.
And I remember a friend, there was like a Facebook group where someone was recruiting and they saw that this guy was coming to trying to get into their studio, and they went to like HR. They went to recruitment and were like, do not hire this guy. Nobody likes him. He's awful, and he's full of and he doesn't know any better. Like, he has no idea he's been blacklisted from that job, but he's like, that is a real thing that I've bore witness to. It's crazy stuff.
I've legit been on the hiring process where we had two very strong candidates, and we chose the guy that was slightly less skilled because he seemed like he'd be a better person to work with. Legit. The other guy had better animation skills, but we chose the other thing because we were like, if we're going to be working till 10 at night with this guy, and, you know, he's, you know, you don't want to be with someone who's difficult to work with. You know, it's just not a thing that anyone wants. And you have industry, you know, I know of places like certain VFX houses where it's less important because you're more on your own, you're more an individual. But in most like games companies, you do have to work as a collaboration. You do have to share stuff around and all, you know, collaborate on this one thing. You know, and no one wants to be working with someone who's gonna come in and complain every day or be arrogant, or I don't know. It just, you know, even if
blames everyone else.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. You kind of want to tell them, but you also don't want to be like, hey, by the way, did you know that you're coming across as a massive douchebag? But, you know, it's surprising how much of a difference it makes. You know, that you would even go and hire someone who has less skill because they seem like they'd be a joy to work with. Because if they're only like a little bit off, you could train that up quickly. But to train someone to not be an asshole is a lot more difficult, right? So,
do we have time for questions?
Yeah, we do. I'm sorry, we've overrun a little, but I think let's do questions. What we got?
Okay. Animal Nature asks, question: has anyone gone back into workshops as a professional?
I think we all have, haven't we? Oh, workshops as in animation online school type stuff, or like actual brick and mortar workshop type things?
Either or.
Yeah.
Let's just go with that.
Raise your hand if you have. Alec has. Oh, have you?
Does it count if like I was still at school and I actually started like in the feature studio? Does that count?
No. Yeah, go for it.
It does not count.
No, get out! You're not an AniMate anymore. We've been meaning to bring this up actually, but we think you're a massive douchebag. We don't want to hang out with you anymore. This is the intervention.
Well,
this is the interview.
Yeah, this is the interview.
No, it's
those Sony Pictures animators.
No, I was thinking of like I really wanted to do like an anime squad or something because I've heard like a lot of professionals do that.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh man, I don't want to spend my money. Like I'd rather do it myself, see what happens. You know.
Yeah.
I think I'll just like because I know like so many leagues now that's just like, you know, you can just ask them after work or something.
Yeah.
They don't mind. Sometimes they don't mind.
Yeah. I actually got super lucky because I realized that I was doing a load of work where I was doing like body mechanics stuff, but I was never doing any acting stuff. And I was like doing all the acting stuff at home, and I was like, I feel like I'm hitting this wall, and I need that extra level of someone else who knows what they're doing to push me to the next level. So I saved up the money to go for these online courses, and then I went and checked. When I did that, I checked with my lead, and I was like, hey, I really want to do this online school, but it's going to be like crazy amount of time that I have to dedicate to it, and it's going to be 3 months, and I just don't think I'll be able to do any overtime in that time because I'll have this course I'm doing, and if I just don't physically, I wouldn't have, would you be okay with that? And this was Creative Assembly, and they are a company that just doesn't do overtime. They are very adamant. I never had to work a day of overtime. like made to work a day of overtime in the 4 years I was there. And then he said, actually, we have a learning education, higher education fund, and you can apply for it. And if you get it, you can get some money off the course. And I did, and I ended up getting the whole course for free, paid for by the company, which was really amazing. So I managed to do that with, is it Adam School? I keep mixing them up. I think it's Adam School. I can't remember. I think it was Adam School. And
They're all the same.
they're all one of them. They all sound so similar, man.
You animate.
Huh? It wasn't iAnimate. It was an animation mentor. It was Adam School. Yeah, because I really liked. I compared them all, and I really liked. Their reels seemed the most polished. Like they had that extra little appeal to it. I thought anyway, which is why I went with that one. And also Animation Mentor was like 2 or 3 times the price or something. So I was like, I don't really want to put my company through that. So I like Adam School better anyway. So I'll try it out. So it was 3 months, and I literally did not do anything but work those whole 3 months. I didn't go out. I didn't go for a cheeky Friday night drink. Weekends, everything. So I learned. I didn't learn that much in terms of the course. They were like, use a line of action, check your silhouettes, and I'm like, yeah, I know all this stuff. And in my brain, I'm going, yes, Elise, of course you know this stuff. You went to university. You've already gone through all this. You're not here for that. You're here for, this is my work. How do I make it better? By a professional animator. So I would go to every class, but I kind of knew all the stuff that was already on the course because it was body mechanics that you have to take first. But the real gem that I got out of it was having someone directly look at my work and teach me all these new things, and having that 3 months of time to just be like, I'm just going for it. And I really found out a lot about how I work through that, because when you get to the point where you physically don't have time for anything else, you get into this weird zen state of flow of your brain has so few decisions to make because you only have this option. I got to this state where I wasn't stressed about working at all, so I got a lot done. And just, do you know what I mean? I don't know if you guys have ever had it where it's because you're not going, oh, I wonder what I'm going to do tonight, and I wonder what I'm going to eat. It was like, no, I'm just doing this, and I kind of figured a lot out about how I work. But I definitely would do it again if I could find a good chunk of time where I knew I could take 3 months to do it. And so far, that hasn't happened again yet. Yeah. How did you guys find it? Did I go too far away from the original? Have you gone back?
No.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah. Did you guys find the same sort of thing when you did it as a professional?
I actually make it a point to go back to class.
Mm.
I set that limitation to myself. Once a year, I have to take a class in something. It doesn't necessarily have to be animation related. It could be something in painting, drawing, rigging, programming,
That's
something.
great.
Just anything that kind of expands my skill set and makes me a better professional. And a lot of times, it actually doesn't cost you that much. Like, for instance, when I was teaching myself programming, I could pretty much do everything through like lynda.com or things like that. And they actually offer us free memberships through Sony and Full Sail. They both offered me free memberships to lynda.com.
Yeah. Nice.
But for instance, Full Sail is very good to their alumni.
Alumni.
Oh no. Yeah,
Alumni.
Sure.
Yeah, so they're actually really good to the alumni. You're allowed, if you graduated from Full Sail, you're allowed to take any class again for free, no matter how long ago you graduated.
Oh, that's good.
And they have an online program, so you don't even have to go there. So I actually retook rigging 4 or 5 years ago, and actually went to the school, and I sat down in the same class I graduated from and relearned rigging. I learned a ton through doing it.
Mm.
But Sony will also pay for your education.
Mm.
So if you
A lot of
decide you want to
companies
go ahead
will.
and a lot of companies will, yes.
Yeah.
So if you decide you want to take an animation course to get better at quadrupeds or game animation or something like that, Sony's like, no, that'll definitely help you and make you a more valuable employee. Let's
Yeah.
absolutely do.
And people don't
And they'll
ask.
pay they'll pay the couple grand or whatever it is
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah, and I knew people who just hadn't asked, or they'd see me doing anim school at work, like after work, obviously, not at work, but after work, and they'd be like, oh, what's that? What are you working on? And I was like, oh, I'm just taking this course. And they'd be like, oh, that's cool. And I was like, yeah, I worked, helped out with it. And they were like, what, really? Can I do that? And I was like, yeah, it's in the thing they hand out to everyone. but no one like takes them up on it. You know, I think someone actually said to me at one point, they were like, we actually have this massive unused creative education budget that no one ever asks about. So they, you know, it's there to be used, so like don't feel bad about using it. But I was also thinking about when you were talking about learning something new, and you know, I was thinking, I wonder how you could do that if you didn't have a lot of money or a lot of time. And I was like, you know what, the 11 Second Club is one of my key ways of getting myself to do a fair amount of work. And what's great about it is, so it's this, if you don't know about it, which I'm pretty sure everyone does at this point, it's a website called the11secondclub.com or something, or 11secondclub.com, and what they do is they do an audio clip as competition, and you have a month to animate 11 seconds worth of animation. And what's great about this is a couple of things. One is that you don't know what the audio is going to be. So like in the industry, you can't cherry pick what you're going to work on. What's also great is that you only have 30 days to work on it. So you can't spend 4 years on it. You have to do it in 30 days and submit it. So you know you're just going to have that small chunk of time. And the other thing is you get comments, there's a forum, and it also gets ranked against other people's animations. So you might think you're best thing since sliced bread, and like me, come out 150th when I first tried it, and go, oh, hang on a minute, why am I last? I thought I was going to get first, and I'm now last. What's that about? And every now and again, I just like, I'm going to do one next month, I think, because it's I think it's just such a brilliant tool to just be like, I just want to give myself this little challenge. And there's not a lot of animation challenges out there. There's the Riot one, I think, right? And there's a couple other.
They did it
ones.
through Polycount.
Right. Yeah.
Polycount has animation challenges.
Polycount's a great
Polycount has
website. It's just full
it
stop.
is.
I should really use it more. I know they've like made an animation section. I was like saying to my like friends for years, like, oh, it's a game dev site and they don't have an animation section. Boo! And then they made one, and then I don't use it, and I'm like the biggest hypocrite in the world. I think I used it for a couple weeks, and nothing was really. It was like it was like brand new, so nothing was happening, and I haven't looked at it again in like a year or two. Is anyone using it at all?
No.
I should have a look.
No, I got I'm trying to do.
I keep jumping between where I try and find my critique, like from like bugging friends to posting on some Discord, AniMstate or AniMates, or like a Facebook groups. There's like a ton of Facebook groups, like the Anim Dojo one, and the 10,000 hours stuff, all that jazz. Cool. I don't think we got any more questions, do we?
Oh yeah, we do.
Do
yeah.
we?
Well, first of all, the other two. Have you guys taken any classes since you graduated?
I have. I'll be quick. I'm currently taking a class, and I have to haul ass back to my actual house so that I can take them, because my coworker is offering me essentially free courses, which is pretty good. And so I'm like a guinea pig for a new class that they're trying to start up. And so I'm doing some stuff, and I'll try to share it later. Like I've done, like we're primarily focusing on body mechanics, which is something that I feel a lot of like fresh animators will like always forget about. So he's got us doing just jumping sequences and stuff like that, which sounds very what's the word? Sorry, I'm still so out of it. But
I'll feel better soon.
Like okay, like for context, I had like a former student of mine who's like, I'm gonna get into animation now. Look at this dragon I animated, and he has this 3D dragon who's sloppily landing. And he's like, have you done a ball bounce? And no, they haven't done a ball bounce. They're just jumping into it. So this is something where I'm like doing a lot of body mechanic stuff. Ubisoft has like $800 a month towards education, and I'm waiting to take the Samantha Yosef life drawing classes and anatomy classes and eventually animation classes, because if you guys should actually look her up. She is a 2D former Disney animator, and she essentially has an online syllabus, and she is so absolutely amazing at what she does, like in regards to drawing like 2D and animating 2D. She actually taught Tina Naraki, who is one of the animators on Cuphead. So she's like really good.
Cuphead is so beautifully done.
So,
that game.
Yeah, so you should look her up. She's got her first book out. She's working on her second, and I've got dibs on her next class, which she said she'll be opening soon. But she
What's
she
the
goes around
name?
to studios and she does a workshop, like a 2-day long workshop at Ubisoft once a year. So I jumped on that.
What was the
And
name you
it
said?
was Samantha Youssef. Last name is Youssef.
Yeah, got it.
And yeah, she's really good at what she does, and she's amazing because she goes from being like really, she's very confident when she gets really into talking about something, because she has learned all over the world because she worked for Disney, and so she's learned from people, and like she's learned from different schools of thought, and she's really amazing. And so I've really been wanting to learn to draw from her, because that was the one thing that I really regretted from school, was not getting enough drawing classes, because I went to a tech school and there wasn't a lot of art stuff. So
Yeah. I
I'm
gotta
further behind
admit,
than I would like.
David actually was like, "Oh, we should do like a stream where we all draw," and I was like, "Oh my god, no,
I would
it's
love
been
to.
so
I love
long."
drawing. I'm just bad at it.
We actually had a
But-
life drawing session at work on Friday. It was so much fun. And like I feel like at university, all our models were like super old dudes, and it was this woman, and she had all these like amazing like poses, and they all looked like you could take a picture of it and just put it on your wall, and it would already be a piece of art without you doing anything. Anyway, sorry, off tangent. But
Yeah, no, that's no, that's really all I can say. Like, again, I dropped the ball with the overtime at my last job, but a lot of that was because my studio was severely I don't even want to say underestimated. We were flat out misled on how big our quota was. So I was doing 3 times as much animation as I should have been doing, which meant I did a ton of overtime, and which meant I dropped the ball on my animation classes. So yeah.
I just realized the chat box isn't working, is it? God damn it! Okay.
But yeah,
on the
I would
side.
say,
Yeah, it's not. Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
I'll fix that. For
but
next
I
time.
do have.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to cut it early because
It's not early
was
at all. We're
supposed
super
to
late.
haul ass across the city,
Yeah.
and I have to go get an Uber now because it's.
Let me know
Late.
if you're free next weekend to go to the Toronto conference thingy.
Yeah, I'll see how that is. Yeah, I'm gonna go take some more
Thank
medicine.
you for tuning in, even though feel better soon. Okay.
Yeah, you guys. Good luck with the rest of the stream. I'll try to catch up. Oh, it's so dark in here. Anyway, sorry. See you guys. Have
See
fun.
ya. You too. Have we lost Alec as well? Everyone's dying off. Are you back,
I
buddy?
keep going.
Okay.
Going off.
Cool.
I know what's happening.
Have we got any more questions at all?
We do. We have one more.
This is so much fun. I'm having a great time.
Okay, so SM Shepherd said, how do you guys learn in your free time now? Do you still have tutorials and online lessons in your free time, or do you just do personal animation after work?
Alec, do you wanna?
I died doing it.
Are you there? Are you good?
He's cutting in and out.
Oh, okay. The question was, how do you
Sorry.
learn?
Yeah, how do you learn in your free time now?
In
Do you
your
do
free time.
tutorials, or do you pretty much just do your own personal projects?
I mostly do when I got out of uni in uni I like went through every tutorial I could find, every talk show thing I could find, any like I like trawled the internet for anything and everything animation related, any videos, anything. So, and then it got to the point where I was so like immersed in everything that it was almost repeating itself over and over again with like what people were saying. So I kind of went off looking at tutorials for a while and was like, you know what? You know when you research something so much that you don't actually do it?
Mm-hmm.
That.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I need to take a break from being like, I'm just going to look at another book and another book and another thing and another thing and just actually freaking do the thing. And then I kind of set myself little projects like the 11-second club, like, oh, I kind of always try and set personal work on something that I struggle with. So, like, for example, the one I'm working on now, my original thought was, I've never done, like, a really emotional scene. How do I make that work, you know? Or it might be, oh, my body mechanics is not as great when I do this thing, so I'm going to try that out. Or sometimes I just look at something and get inspired and go try that out. But majority of the time it's just me doing more animation. But I would love to know if there was a better way of learning, especially if like it was like, oh, life drawing is super beneficial, because I think it is. It's just one of those things that I am trying to get around to more now, but kind of did a ton of at uni, and then it's, you know, a bit of a blur, and then I'm trying to get back into it now. But I'd love to know if you do anything specific, David, that is not just sitting down and animating.
So it depends on the topic. If it's a newer topic for me, I will scour through tutorials, because that's probably the best way to do it. You go on YouTube and you look up a whole bunch of stuff, or
Yeah.
lynda.com, or it's a Pluralsight, and a whole bunch of different stuff. So when I was learning how to program, I taught myself how to program through tutorials. The more advanced you get in a topic, it becomes more difficult. Like for me, for animation specifically, it becomes tougher because you can't just look up on YouTube because it usually just covers the basics, maybe intermediate stuff. But for like super specific technical stuff, or for very specific style things, or even just trying to get yourself up to that next level, you can't really do that. So ways I get around it is, one, I try to find ways to get out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So I try to find challenges, competitions, collabs, anything that I can participate in that's like, hey, you know, I wouldn't normally do this, but by doing this, I can expand my skill set, maybe try new things and learn new things based up, just because I'm not so stuck in my rut anymore.
Yeah.
But if it's really, really specific stuff, like if I need to get better at gameplay quadrupeds, I got to take a class for that.
Man,
Quadrupeds. Yeah.
They're so difficult.
Man.
They're so difficult.
I hate quadrupeds so
Getting
much
the
right
front
now.
and back legs working blows my mind. It's like this bit looks good and that bit looks good, and then together it looks like, you know, ugh.
Yeah, but I'd say the majority of the time, to get better, I just personal project.
Yeah, I do think there are ways you can speed up getting better. So, for example, I think you hit on one of the main ones, which is getting outside your comfort zone. I think I see a lot of people who will animate the same thing over and over again, and it's like, why you keep doing the same thing? Like, surely when you I don't know, when you do that and then you're like, okay, what's the next thing? And if you're not like pushing the boundaries, you know, it's like when you do life drawing and you don't draw the hands, and someone said to me like, oh, why haven't you put the hands in? I'm like, oh, well, I'll draw the hands when I'm a good artist. And they're like, well, how will you ever know how to draw hands unless you draw hands? And I'm like, so you're saying I have
I'm
to
just
draw?
waiting for that patch to download.
Right, yeah. Oh my god, if only. But like, and that kind of blew my mind. I was like, oh yeah, like I probably should be trying at least to do this stuff so that one day I know how to do it. And the other thing I think is really critical, which also helps you when you get into the industry, is getting feedback. You know, like whatever you're doing, you're never going to be able to see it. You know, especially if you can get feedback from anyone, and I think Twitter is something I've found to be brilliant for this, because if you can get your social media like presence, you know, and you can follow like a bunch of artists and animators and be around a bunch of cool animation and connect with enough people who are animators that will give you feedback. A lot of times you'll do an animation and you'll be like, hey, blah, blah, get some feedback, and someone will say, oh, this thing's wrong, and oh, if you do that it'll look better, and oh, watch out for the spacing here. And I think it kind of solidifies in your mind, okay, this is the level I can see at, and wherever I think everything's perfect. And then someone takes that, gives you feedback and goes, yeah, but what about that? And you kind of go, oh, okay. And then the next time you're like, okay, this is now where the bar is. I'm here, and that's the new bar. And then eventually you get up to there, and you're like, okay, I know that it looks perfect. What are you talking about? And then you go get feedback, and someone goes, yeah, but have you thought about that? And you're like, oh, I haven't thought about that before. And then, you know, that's kind of how I see feedback breaking through that next layer, almost, because there's the two, you know, learning things where it's like the flows, the like, I can't remember what it's called, but like the artist's, not journey, but yeah,
like the
and it's like
helix.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
and it's like when it's what's it called? But it's like two lines.
It's like the artist cycle or something
Yeah.
like that. I keep it on my desktop all the time because I reference it so much.
Oh, I found it. Here we not cycling artists. Here we go. I have this in like every presentation I've ever done. because I'm like, if you haven't seen this, this is the key to everything, blah blah blah. Yeah, so this is it. All it is like this little graph, and it's yeah, perceived skill. Wait, no. Yeah, skill at making the art versus skill at evaluating or seeing the art. So what happens is, yeah. So what happens is your, let me make this smaller. Your you know, there's like the level that you're at and the level that you can see. So that's why when you first get going and you first start animating, you're like, oh my god, I'm the best animator ever, because suddenly your skill at being able to see what's good is like ugh, and your ability to do things is all the way up here. So you get this art high where you think, oh my god, everything I'm making is just the best. And then someone actually points out to you, wait, no, that all looks terrible. What is that? And then suddenly you go, oh, and then you flip, and now you can see how bad it is, and you can fix it. And then you're constantly doing this, where you're either in a state where I can see more than what you can achieve, which is good because your work looks bad, so you can fix it, or you think your work's great, but really you know it can't be. So there's definitely something wrong with it, because there's always somewhere to go. So you know that your eye hasn't caught up yet, and I think that difference between being able to see it and not being able to see it, it will come over time naturally, but I think if you can get someone else's opinion and eye on it that's not going to sugarcoat it, like your mum or your parents or like a friend that's too close or something, it's just the best way of progressing, I think. I hope that helped.
There's also the flip side of that too. So there's getting critiques, but I think another big aspect of it is also giving critiques. Because a great way to learn things is by teaching others. Because whenever you see somebody who's having a problem with a technical issue, a lot of times they'll run into things that you've never run into before, and you're just like, oh well, shoot, let's figure it out together. When you find out together, you're like, oh man, that's amazing, I didn't know that before. But then the other aspect too is when you're critiquing other people's work, and they're like, man, they're really having an issue with arcs specifically. So you keep pointing out things about the arcs, but then when you go back to your work, I'm like, oh crap, my arcs suck too, and you go back and you just try to like fix all the little things in there. It's so I think teaching is also a very valuable way to improve.
Yeah, definitely. You know, literally, I had this phenomenon happen about 20 minutes before stream, where I'm working on this thing and polishing it up, and I'm like, why does this not look good? And Alec showed me a bunch of stuff, and he's like, oh yeah, this is some like, he was just like, oh, this animation's cool, and I looked at it and I was like, wait, why does this look so much better than what I've got? Why? I'm looking at it and I know it's different, and I know one's better and one's worse, but I just can't tell. And he started saying, oh, you know, it's interesting because you're moving the hips around so much. And I was like, yeah. And you know, it just made me realize that I'm playing it really safe with my animations, and I'm trying to put movement in to make it look more realistic. But if you actually look at what a lot of the really talented people do, they're like so stuck in their poses, like, you know. And it's interesting to me that you just need that other person to be like, oh, but have you thought about it this way? And then you're like, now I've got to, and then you know, you feel bad because your animation now sucks, but at least you know where to go, so it's good.
Is Alec back?
I think
Alec,
so.
you here?
I don't know. He's fighting through the buffering.
There it is.
Hey, welcome back. If you guys want to shoot off, by the way, we're like 45 minutes over. But I think I'm just gonna hang around and do some animation work, because I fancy it. But it's up to you guys if you want to keep chatting, or you want to call it a day, or.
Well, I'm going to get some bubble tea, so.
Get some.
Yeah, I think if that's the end of the topic today, I'm gonna go ahead and duck off and move on with the rest of my day.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to do this.
Huh?
I have to go in too, so.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
What I'll do is I'll like kill the stream, because like not everyone's gonna want to see me animate, and I'll like start up a new one if people want to stick around, and if not, then that's cool too. But yeah, thank you guys for sticking around so long. I'm sorry it ran a little late, but it was just so great chatting about all this stuff.
So
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also, next week, I'm going to be at a conference, animation thing in Toronto, and I'm not going to be near a computer, so I don't know if we're going to be doing stream next week. I'll try and figure something out. If not, we might have to miss a week, but if we are doing it, I'll be posting announcements and stuff everywhere, so you won't miss it. But thank you guys for tuning in, and if you want to stick around and see me animate, then great, and if not, have a good night. I'm going to sneeze.
Bye, everyone.
Excuse me.
Bless
Bye,
you.
guys. See ya.